Hey everyone, so as you can imagine, my number one asked about thing right now is the coronavirus or the COVID-19 and how we as funeral homes are reacting to, preparing for, and handling deceased that have died or possibly died from this virus. So, it makes me think back to a lot of viruses and a lot of kind of pandemic that went around, with the AIDS virus and HIV and all sorts of other diseases that have popped up along the way, and that everyone overreacts sometimes, but better to overreact than underreact, I think, is the theory. Why not take extra precaution now rather than any regret later? So my most updated information is from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. When I was younger, that's where I wanted to work and be an epidemiologist, so I'm sure that is who is working hard and getting us all this information. And they are rolling out information readily to the National Funeral Directors Association to keep all of us in the business updated, alerted, and working with the most current information possible. So the release that I have most recently read is from March 11th, and it is simply stating that kind of business as usual. Use the precautions that we know to use with every deceased that we are caring for. Respirators, full PPEs, masks, goggles, gowns, gloves. Using that throughout the whole process. Removal, transferring, embalming, everything we're doing using the full extent of PPE. I think just like within a lot of situations, like we're all learning how to wash our hands again and how to clean properly. And that's becoming like all the rage right now with videos, like how to wash your hands. We should all be doing that all the time. But when something like this pops up, we're reminded that maybe we've gotten a little lazy about our self-sanitary care. Same within the funeral home. Maybe we've gotten a little lazy with how much PPE. Maybe we don't need to throw on a gown to do this or that. Maybe we don't need to cover the mouth of the deceased just because when we're moving them. But we're reminded that those steps are in place for a reason. So many people are asking, can we still have a visitation? Can we still have a funeral? Can we still see our loved one? Is it safe? The Center for Disease Control at this point is saying, yes, it is safe. You may choose to have a viewing or a burial. You can still embalm. You can still have the service for your loved one that you had planned previously. They do recommend that maybe you don't touch your loved one at the funeral home when you go in, or touch someone else's loved one if you're attending a visitation or a funeral. As always, with anything you're doing, you do need to check with your local state and county laws and regulations. Whereas maybe it's the National Funeral Directors and the Center for Disease Control are saying it's okay to do this, then maybe your state officials or your county officials in the health department are telling you, no, you should not do such a thing. So maybe gathering and having visitation is okay. However, your state officials might be saying, please don't have any gatherings where you're bringing together X number of people, like 200 people. And so they want you to refrain from those type of situations. So families are starting to delay visitations and memorial services and gatherings, or changing them to be just private family to alleviate their exposure to the public and the public gathering in a large area, just because. It doesn't mean that the person had the disease that died, but just the exposure to a lot of other people who somebody in that room might have the disease. So there are considerations that people are having outside of what rules, regulations, and recommendations are, just because of their own comfort level. But the CDC has stated that having a funeral should be safe. Being in the same room as someone who has died of the disease should be safe. But no one ever wants to say 100% that it's going to be okay just in that one instant that someone might get sick. So, follow your gut, follow what the officials are saying, and do what makes you most comfortable. There's tons of things going on the internet. I know that, it's been around forever, right? It's listed right there on the label. But just like influenza, every year has different strains that come out. It's the same thing with COVID-19. It's the same thing with coronavirus. There are different strains that come out. So be educated. Do not believe everything that is passing in front of you on social media or that you're hearing from hearsay. Educate yourself. If you go to the Johns Hopkins website, there is a live diagnosed tracker of how many people have been diagnosed, how many people have been surviving through having the disease. And there's a live tracker by region, by numbers and everything. So it's kind of a fun way to just track what's actually happening in numbers with the disease. This is not changing much to us here in the US for funerals. However, in some countries, there are regulations being put into place of how bodies are to be handled. That if a deceased does have the disease, that they have to be immediately cremated or immediately buried, and that their loved ones can't see them and they can't be embalmed. So there are countries who have processes in place right now that are changing the funeral business for their countries. Currently, though, the Center for Disease Control is saying, no worries, stay the course. We are safe at this point. So that's what many of us are doing, unless our local officials change and give us different direction. At this point, here in Michigan, we are staying the course using extreme personal protective equipment, PPE, and moving forward. We'll see what tomorrow brings, though. And until we get more information or it is updated, make sure, like I said, you're educating yourself on what you should do for you and your family. Check out some of the links that I'm posting in the description for this video from some other funeral directors, funeral directing organizations, and for the Center for Disease Control to get the most current up-to-date information for yourself about the coronavirus. Thank you, everyone.